Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to look at putting some points onto your leather. I'm Simon and welcome to Oakside Saddlery. So what is a point? I'm going to go through there on the video and we will see how to make these types of points. We'll talk about them, see what they're good, why they like them, why I like them, and different things you can use. The idea of a point is it makes it much easier to put, I'll show you one, so that when we've got our buckles and things here, it makes it much easier for a point to go through than it would be as a square end, and it makes it much easier to start to thread through loops and things. Yes, so these are our cathedral point. What about that, eh? Little bonus paint there of a collar that I've made for someone, a custom built one. It was a bit of an experiment. It actually worked quite well. So it's a rolled 4-strand braid. Quite nice. Anyway, back to the video. Oaksidesaddlery.co.uk if you want to order something. Anyway, looking at our points. So we'll go through the video. We'll look at a triangle point, a chisel point, a round point, bridal point, and a cathedral or English point. So, back to you in a bit. Points then. What's the point? Point for our leather. So we're going to cut some points onto here. So we're going to do 5 different points. It'll give you an idea of things you can use for your leather work, your leather craft, what they use for, when I use them, and different ideas for what people use. So some of the tools we're going to use then, I don't know why I've got that, I don't need that. Some of the tools we're going to use, so we obviously bits of leather, a ruler, quite common, although I've got markings on the bottom here, we can use that. I've got some round things, so these are all just washers. I've got a round awl, I've got a head knife, and I've got a pair of dividers. So we'll start simple and work our way up to something a bit more complicated. So let's get rid of some of the stuff that I don't actually need. Dogs are barking. And we'll start off then with a real basic, simple as simple can be point. So we're going to just look at a triangular point. So leather we're using, all of this leather is Sedgwick's bridal leather. They're all obviously bits of off-cut that I've got. Sedgwick bridal leather, about 3.5mm thick. Bridal butt is what I tend to use for all my things. So I want somewhere in the middle here. So I can get this. I'm just going to measure across. Find that halfway mark which is there. I'm going to measure back somewhere around 3/4 inch, so we say. So 3/4 inch takes me to there. I can square that up with this if I want. So we'll look at some different options that we've got, and we'll square that up to there. I'm then going to put my lines on. So I've got one there up to that point there, one from this side, there's my point, up to that side there. And we've got our nice little mark that we're going to cut through. Lining these up then, line my head knife up. I'm going to look straight down. You can't see this, but I'm going to look straight down that head knife because I don't want it tipping from side to side. If it tips from side to side at 3.5mm thick leather, you're going to cut a big difference between the sides you're on. So nice and square, line it up, make sure everything's lined up, rock it forward, cut it. Other side, again, I'm going to find my point, line it up, cut it. So we've loosed them parts. So we've now got a nice little triangular shaped point, nothing special, it just makes it easier to go through a loop or a D or something like that. I can improve this a bit just by taking that off. If you look here, see that's already got a little fluffy bit. Well, we can stop that just by taking the very, very point off. So it's actually not a very pointy point, it's got a square end to it. Crease around it, don't crease over the edges if you can help it, crease up short, crease there. We talked about crease, didn't we? Edge it, that'd be alright. That'll do your basic, real simple design. Not my favourite. Our next one then, we're going to look at a chisel point. So this one being a chisel point, it's slightly different. It's just going to be a line drawn down there. So I'm not too fussed. I can use my cutting mat if I want to think, yeah, that looks like a pretty good line. So I'm going to go down from there to there. So I can sit above it, line it up with marks on here, thereabouts, draw my line, swap them over, rock my knife for it. I don't want it rocking to the side, and we cut that off. This again, chisel point, yes, it's something that you can do, not something I would necessarily use, but it might work. Again, I want to lose that little point, so I'm just going to take a little notch off of that. Real basic design, isn't it? Nothing complicated. Just makes it easier again that when you're passing through something, it opens it up as it goes through to line it up. We can improve on this. We can improve on it a little bit. So I'm going to take my 90 degree and I'm going to pick somewhere around here, draw a line, line it up again, cut it off, nick them corners, and we've got a chisel point. Chisel point looks again much better than it was. I could slope that back at a bit of an angle if I wanted to, make it more of a almost a triangle, but an off-center triangle. It's really good if it's really awkward to get a square. So if you can't get your middles very easy because perhaps something's in the way or something like that, something you've had to alter, because that looks like it's meant to be done. When it's just slightly out, it looks wrong. When it's a long way out, it looks right. Bit weird, but there. So chisel point. Again, not my favourite, but it might call for it. The work might call for it, or it might be your design, your style. Some of the people have that sort of design. You see that on some of these belts. Nice design. Pick how you want it to go through your belt loop. However, next one we're going to look at then, a round point. Now, a round and a point don't make the sense, does it? But it's just a way of finishing off the end of your leather, really. If this was a return, say for instance it was the back of a belt and you've got rivets through it and this is your last part of it, if you left it square, even if you skived it down, if you left it square, it will get caught and catch up and things like that. So by putting a round end on it, makes it look like it's nice and tidy. So we've got options then. We need round things, and depends on what you want. So we can put a washer in there somewhere, and if I lined that up roughly with it, and again by eye, I could measure it if I wanted to and really get it right. For eyes, this sort of size is good enough. I could think, right, I could draw my line around and cut that. I could go a bit smaller, in which case I get more of a curve on it, or I could go smaller still and have an inch washer perhaps on that inch strap, and that would make a complete curve. Or, missing everything, funny enough, your rulers all tend to come with that curved edge to them, don't they? So I can line that up. Being an inch wide as well means the ruler's that width. So I can line that up, take my roundel, draw my line round. When you draw with these, make sure you push a point into it, because what tends to happen is the thickness of that pushes it out. So it's just an option. And we have our mark where we can cut through it. So let's have a look at cutting. I'm going to use that part of my head knife. I'm going to line it up with my first part, and all I'm going to do is rock the blade slightly, and as I rock it I'm turning the leather. I'm going to keep my fingers clear and I'm turning the leather around until I get to the end of it. So we've cut our piece of leather off and we've got a round end to that leather. I'll tidy that up if I wanted to, nick them corners off. So that's a possibility. That's one. If we went smaller, and let's cut this near there somewhere. So I've gone smaller here. I'm just going by the feel of it on my fingers either side. So again, keep that point into the washer. So it's there. So now we've got something that's cut in much smaller. It might be, this is quite awkward when you turn that. So what I can do, if I could see it properly, I can line my head knife up with it, and then all I'm going to do is rock it forward and take some cuts. And as I'm doing it, I'm lining it up with my line. I can see just about around there because the light's gone really funny in here today. Don't know, I've got the sunshine on my arm, and I've pasted the arms. And we've taken lots of little slivers all from the edge of there. So the more of them you get, the better your work might be, or the curve might be. So we'll lose that, don't need that. But if I quickly glance at it, I can see that's not quite square because I've missed the line slightly there. So it's not a problem, because what I can do is come back in and just take a few more off of that, and therefore you get better on. By the time you sanded it, sorted your ends out, tidied it up, creased it, edged it, everything else, it'd come out really nice, wouldn't it? So it'd be perfect for the back of your belt there. Right, lose them, and lose that one. So bridle point. Bridle point, probably it's one of my favourite points, to be honest. It's a nice design, works really well. I use it a lot on dog collars, bridles obviously because it's a horse thing. They tend to have a bridle point. Quite a tough point, but they do go into the holes really well. There are ways of doing these, so people overthink it again, like a lot of things, they overthink stuff. So this is 1 inch wide. So if it's 1 inch wide, I'm going to go back 1 inch. So these marks are 1 inch apart on it. So there's one. I'm going to come back to here, one on this side, back to there. If it was 3/4 of an inch wide strap, I'd go back 3/4 of an inch. If it was 1/2 inch, I'd go back 1/2 inch. If it was bigger, I might go further. There are times when you might change it. So for instance, on a horse bridle, if the cheek pieces was 3/4 of an inch wide, but the throat latch was only 1/2 inch wide, I would cut the throat latch at 3/4 of an inch so it matched. Make sense? We'll have a look at that at some point. So width of your leather apart, that's how far back you go. If you haven't got a ruler, that was 1 inch wide, wasn't it? Imagine that's the off cut that I've just taken off there. You could use that, place it on and mark where you want to go. Easy enough to do. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to take this in. So for you metric people, it's probably about 2 mil. For imperial people, you're looking at about a 1/16. So that very first little marker, that's all I'm looking at, so 1/16 of an inch. I'm then going to put my point on there, put it up to this. Said point a lot, we could have a point counter on this one. One into there, that's about there somewhere. I'm then going to take my head knife again, I can line it up with one, cut through there, line it up with the other one, cut through there, and take them 2 little corners off. So that's a bridle point. Now bridle point doesn't have to sit like that. It doesn't have to be exactly that measurements and everything else. By the time again you've edged them, creased them, puffed them all down, it comes up really nice. If it's a bigger strap, you might want to go in perhaps 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, or 3 or 4 mil. It depends, whatever looks right for your work, yeah? So whatever looks right for it, just cut what's best for you. Bridle point, nice and strong, really good, I like them. Our last one then is going to be a cathedral point. So to me it's a cathedral point, other people call it an English point, but a cathedral point is what I think. It looks like cathedral windows, you know them, that nice shape you have at the top of a window on a cathedral instead of a square like you do in your house. Shut up. I have seen people do these and they make it really complicated. So they start with things like they mark that centre line and then they get a big washer perhaps and put it on here and draw around it, and another washer run on the other side, draw around it, you know. Yeah, it might get it. Sometimes I've seen them doing one washer and then they're putting another washer in to get another bit on the top and all this lot. You don't need to do any of that. You just need a pair of dividers. So dividers, you can get some really nice ones of these. These are really old and a bit knackered, but they do work for me. They're old MOD ones, I think. All I'm going to do then is set this up first of all to the width of that leather. So that's easy enough to do, because all I've got to do is hold it onto it. I'm not measuring nothing because I don't really care how wide it is. It works with whatever width of leather strap that you've got. So if you've got 3/4, you'll set it at that 3/4 width. So it's going by the width of the leather, not by any measurements. I'm then looking at somewhere in the middle, and that's about there. That's just by eye, and I'm going to draw a curve around. I'm going to match it up on the other side, and again I'm going to look somewhere in that middle line, which is there, and draw a curve around. So there's my 2 lines to cut against. So I've got 2 curves. I'll line my knife up with one. Well, I'll show you something that happens or tends to happen a lot. I'm going to rock that through, cut one side out, Go around the other side, cut the other side out, lose that, take the point off. Cathedral point. How easy was that? Now, if we think about what people have been doing with these and how they do them, they make them really complicated. But that's a cathedral point. Or an English point. I don't mind which. Call it what you like. It's really nice to get it. It looks really nice when it's done. Crease around it, edge it, same as everything else. What you can get though, let me just do this deliberately. So we're going to get one curve there, and then I'm going to cut the next one. But we won't be able to do it now. And I'll just cut that through there. And you look at it and think, yep, that looks good. And then you turn it over and realise that one side is slightly fatter than the other. And that's quite common. It's to do the way your shadow goes, the light tips on the knife, all manner of different things you get. So one way is easy to cut. So this way, I can cut round here, and that's quite easy. When it comes to cutting the other way, all the leather and everything, because the rest of your work would be attached this way, gets in the way. Sometimes it's not so good. You can get around that by, I'm going to start another line further back. So take a point here somewhere, draw me line. Oh, draw me line. There's one cut. So I'm going to just do this side first. Cut that through there. I'm then going to flip my work over. So now I've got it from this side. I know roughly the middle of that line is somewhere around there. And I'm going to cut that side. So it means I've cut both pieces the same way, which gives you a better point. Yeah, so it goes on it. Again, just take that edge off of there. I've made loads of cuts on that. That's going to be much shorter than the rest of them. But cathedral point. Considering I've done that by eye really and didn't really go, it's not too bad, is it? It's nearly right there. So the types of point then, let's get them back out. These are our designs, aren't they? And lose all this other stuff. Different types that we have, different ones that you want, however you want to do it. That's just 5 designs. I'm sure there's others. They do what you like. Do what you want. It doesn't matter which. That looks terrible now because now I've messed it around, but never mind. Triangle. Nice little triangle on the end. Switch them around to see what I've done them in. Chisel point, round point, bridal point, cathedral or English point. All made fairly simple. Nothing complicated. So, pick your design, whatever you like. You don't have to stick to it. You can do what you like with your leatherwork. It's your leatherwork. That's the idea of it being handcrafted. You can have your favourites. Not that I'm saying I've got some favourites. But you can have your favourites. Do what you like. It doesn't matter, does it? You can do what you want. Try and use them as well. Getting them around, alter them to fit. Do whatever you need to make it work on your saddlery work, yeah? Your leather work, or leather craft. It works just as well with small stuff. You can get fancy chisels. You hold down, bang, makes these points. You can get big half circular punches, bang, you can smack them in there. All of them makes your work easier, especially if you're trying to do lots of the same thing. It makes it a lot quicker. I have got some chisels for these, what my old blacksmith made for me. Very rarely do I use them. I find them harder to do than just cutting it. By the time I've found the stamp, it's up to you. Anyway, some choices for you. Some choices on bridal, or on leather points for your bridal work and your leather work. So, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. We all know, thumbs up's probably, I don't know, thumbs sideways, up and down, I don't care. Give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, give it a like. And if you really want to see some more leather work, I will try and get another one done, perhaps in the next week or so, because I've got a few things that need doing. They would need some holes in to start with, so we can look at some holes. So if the next video's up, it'll be a link up there somewhere. I don't know, somewhere around. Give it a likes up and subscribe. I hope you have a good day, and goodbye.